Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So today we have a wonderful guest, mashallah, Naim Salahuddin, who's a student at UIS in biology, and he's going to cover the subject of entomology. It's something that he's extremely interested in. It's something that he would like to pursue. This is a wonderful family who came from Peoria. Their sister was also a student, Suraya, at UIS as well. But everyone, please pay attention. He has a wonderful PowerPoint presentation to share with us. And Naim, slowly people are going to start filtering in. So I just wanted to hand it over to you so that you can proceed. But everybody else, please remember to mute yourself on the other side. Although he told me that he likes the interactive portion as well. So I leave it to you. I leave it in your hands, Naim.
All right, inshallah. So, assalamu alaikum. Let me see how many people are here. So we'll see. Does everybody have access to the raise your hand aspect of Zoom? If you guys can, then raise your hands.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so during this beginning part of the session of the PowerPoint, I'm going to call on some people to maybe try to guess certain answers. So if you guys want to participate, raise your hand, and I'll call on you. The next day you guys can unmute yourself. Sound fair? All right, so where is my cursor? There we go. Without further ado, we shall begin. So there is an animal that I'm going to be describing, inshallah, and I want you guys to try to guess what it is, okay? So this animal is a very dangerous carnivore, all right? It's known throughout the animal kingdom to be very voracious. Any opportunity that it can to eat its prey, it's going to hunt it down and then just tear it up and consume it, all right? There's your first clue. Second clue, from within the darkness and within the distance, from wherever the prey is, if they look out and they see this animal, these are the markings that it sees on its face. It's like as if it was a monster sent away from the farthest reaches of the galaxy, all right? There's your second clue, all right? Third one, these prey items, they're very numerous, like sheep or cow or goat, for example. And this animal will purposely seek out the habitats and the living grounds of these prey items. Then they'll go and lay hundreds of eggs nearby so that as soon as the little prey hatch, they're going to sit there and just eviscerate and consume and eat all of the prey in their path. Okay? There's your next hint. Number 4, these animals, the coats of these animals can range from anywhere from a vibrant cranberry red to a muddled tan in color. Sometimes in between, you might see a nice mandarin orange color, maybe even a tomato, like a ripe tomato red. All right, there's your next. Your final clue is that interrupted throughout the coat or the covering of this animal are these, like a myriad of spots and just dots that interrupt this very bright and vibrant pattern, almost as if they were like windows into the deep darkness of space and the void. Okay, those are your 5 clues. So if someone wants to raise their hand and try to figure out what animal I'm talking about, who wants to take a guess? So Zahra, I see your hand is up. You want to take a shot at what animal I'm talking about?
I forgot to lower my hand.
Do you want to take a guess anyway?
A leopard.
Okay, a leopard's a good guess. Anyone else want to try to guess? Harun.
A cheetah?
A cheetah, all right, okay. All right,
Is it a giraffe?
A giraffe? All right, so we've got giraffe, we've got cheetah, and we've got leopard. All right, we'll hear from Sadia and then Fizz. So Sadia?
A lion?
A lion, all right. So we're gonna go ahead and see what this animal is. And it is none other than the ladybug. Did any of you guys think that ladybugs did any of these things? Probably not. So a lot of people see ladybugs outside. They think they're these little, they're pretty, they're cute. Sometimes people think that they bring good luck and everything, and that they're harmless. They are harmless, and they're very beautiful creatures of Allah, mashallah. But through learning about the actual animal, you'll actually get to know from their perspective what it's like to, live on their level. These ladybugs actually hunt down what's called aphids. Aphids are these very small insects that actually land on little, they like to live on plants, like the actual stems of plants, and they have these little straw mouth parts that they stab into the actual plant, and they drink out the actual, like the liquid in the plant. So when they take the water away from the plant will sometimes die. So these little aphids are usually all over these ups and downs, like you see them on flowers, you see them on like tomato plants, and gardeners actually don't want these aphids on their plants because a gardener wants to raise up their crops like tomato plants or cucumber plants and other crops that bring vegetables in their garden, because these aphids will kill their plants. And if they kill the plant, they can't have any fruits or vegetables for them to basically reap and actually take, So what they'll do is they'll actually get the ladybugs and they'll put them in their garden, because the ladybugs will go and eat the aphids. And when the ladybugs eat the aphids, they'll protect the garden and actually save the vegetables from being eaten and destroyed by the aphids. All right, isn't that really cool? So yes, this is the ladybug. It comes from this. In science, we organize things with all these fancy little names. We start up really, really big, called a kingdom, like the kingdom of all of the animals. So within the kingdom, we have these little groups called phyla. And within the phyla, we have things called orders. Now, a phylum that the insects fall under are called arthropods. And that's anything that has like a really hard shell. So you've got like crabs, lobsters, bees, cicadas, ladybugs, bugs, all of those things fall on spiders, scorpions. They all have hard shells. They fall under arthropod. And you've got the class Hexapoda, and that class basically just talks about, that's all the insects. So an insect is, here's a good example, something like this. This right here is a shield bug. And this bug here has 3 parts to itself. It's got the head all the way at top. You've got the thorax, which is in the middle, and then the abdomen, which is this bottom part. All right. All insects also have 6 legs. See, you've got 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6 on the other side. So in the class Insecta, or that class Hexapoda, are all these guys. And then within that group of insects, you've got orders. The order here is Coleoptera, which are all the beetles. A ladybug is a type of beetle. So what's this guy? This is also a type of beetle. And then we break that down further into families to further organize things. And Coccinelda are where all of the ladybugs lie. So that's something cool about ladybugs. Now up next, we have a very familiar insect coming up. We've got the bumblebee. So their order is called Hymenoptera, which includes all of the bees, the ants, the sawflies, and the wasps. Now, something that's really cool about bees is in the name Hymenoptera. Hymen means to connect, and ptera means wing. So their wings actually have these little hooks that hook into each other from the front and the back to give their wings more structure, so that when they fly, they're able to basically withstand a lot more of their weight for pounds of force on their wings to lift them up and have a lot more powerful and driven flight in the air. All right, so that here is the bumblebee. So my name is Naim Salahuddin. I am a senior undergraduate student here at the University of Springfield. My passion obviously is insects and entomology. When I was 6 years old, I remember living in a house back in Peoria, Illinois, and I went into the basement, and on the ground crawling was this insect that I'd never heard of. Everyone opens up the little encyclopedia books and they sit there and watch stuff like Blue's Clues and whatever when you're a kid. You learn about ants, you learn about butterflies, bees, pretty much ladybugs, wasps, all those things. Maybe even they'll throw in worms and spiders. But this insect that I saw didn't fit any of those categories. It was, imagine an ant that was kind of smashed flat, weird looking wings in the back, and these huge little hooky things in the back. I had no idea what this was. Was I scared of it? A little bit, but I was also intrigued because I'd never seen this insect before. And so I decided to go ahead and put like a little cup over it, and I went upstairs to go try to figure out what it was. I did forget about it, and it did suffocate, and it did die. That's not the point of the story. What the point of the story is I found something that was interesting about this creature that I didn't know about. And I eventually found another one, and we will cover what this insect is later in the presentation. But it sparked my intrigue about the world of insects. How can this hard package of 6 legs and rocky exoskeleton body be so vast and different? We've got all these different types of insects and everything, ranging from grasshoppers and crickets to praying mantises and different types of beetles. Like we'll even learn that there's over 750,000 species of beetle, which is more than any species of any animal on the face of the planet. So why are there so many different shapes and types of these insects? You know, these are questions I began to ask myself. And so later that year, this was 2017, Eid rolled around, and my mother really did help feed my passion for entomology personally. And so I give a lot of credit between her and my father as well for really supporting my passions, leading me to the place where I am right now. For Eid, they gave me this book that I've not gotten rid of. It's called The Big Bug Book. And throughout this entire book are all these different pages talking about all these different types of species and types of bugs and insects. And that really helped drive my passion. So what I honestly want to do now as a college student is I want to get to learn and I want to get to know how they work, how their body, their morphology, their external anatomy helps them to either live in a specific condition or maybe survive against other predators, how their internal body organs work, and maybe sometimes even just how to take care of them, because I personally like to take care of other animals. So learning about this discipline is called animal husbandry is really where my passion lies. I want to go ahead and study animals and mainly insects on that level to be able to really understand how they live and survive in the wild. And maybe that might give us more insight as to maybe how to better take care of our environment, or maybe we might learn something really cool about how they work and we can apply that to medicine or even engineering. All right, so I will walk through with you some really cool examples of how just by learning about insects that we either know a lot about or don't know much about, we can maybe draw conclusions from what we learn about them and apply that to how we can benefit our livelihood as human beings, all right? And one really cool example takes us to the Namibian desert in Asia. So in the Namibian desert, there's a specific type of beetle called a darkling beetle, all right? And this is what this darkling beetle does. As the sun is rising, it sticks its little abdomen in the air and begins wiggling it around. And as it does that, water begins to form on its back. Isn't that kind of interesting? So imagine as the sun begins to rise in the desert, and as we know, when heat rises, or when the sun begins to rise, heat begins to rise as well. So the cold condensed air that's inside, or the water that's inside the air, will begin to expand and rise and go up and become like the clouds and everything through evaporation. As that process is happening, very, very close on the actual back surface of the beetle are these small little divot points called nucleation points. And what they'll do is they'll basically kind of grab onto the water molecules in the air as it's moving its abdomen around. And when that happens, it's grabbing all these little water molecules and it's sticking to the beetle. And when it grabs enough water molecules, it'll form a bead of water on its back. And because the actual surface of the exoskeleton is waterproof, when enough of the water beads up onto it, it'll roll down to the actual surface of the face of the insect's mouth, and they'll drink the water. That's it. All they have to do is just wiggle their abdomen in the air and they're able to draw water from the actual air. So there's a lot of research that's getting put into this phenomenon. So I'm a Star Wars fan. So I use this example from a character from a movie called Rogue One. Imagine being able to wear a suit of armor, all right, that's made of a material very similar to the outside of a Namibian darkling beetle. And all you have to do is just walk through the air, maybe even just shake a little bit. And that process will pull water from the air and onto the surface of the armor. You could put little small, like maybe nano channels throughout that material that'll draw it to a central, like a canteen or a water supply. Imagine how beneficial that would be for soldiers that are out there in the that are in like desert-like climates. They could bring canteens of water, but if they run out of that, all you gotta do is just send out a couple soldiers, or maybe even cover a truck with this material. All they gotta do is drive through the desert as the sun is rising, and it just fills in the tank with water. You know, it's a concept, but it's still something that we can study and look at insects for a mechanical and actual tangible advantage for us as humans, you know? That's one cool example. Here's another one. We've got here a blue morphle butterfly. Now, I'm gonna have someone raise their hand again. And this is it's gonna seem like an easy question, but work with me with this one. I want someone to raise their hand and answer this question. What color is this butterfly? Someone raise their hand. Sadia.
Yellow.
Yep. Okay.
Wait.
Okay. I see you're trying to outsmart me here. Okay. So on the outside, the blue morphle butterfly looks blue. Now here's the concept of how we perceive color with our eyes. Let's take an actual blue thing, my biochemistry lab notebook. How this works is the sun emits white light. And what white light is basically all the colors of the rainbow, all the colors of the rainbow. And when all the colors of the rainbow hit this surface will absorb every single color, but reflect only one. It'll reflect blue. So when it reflects that blue light and it goes into our eyes, then we see this color as blue, as opposed to, let's say, this little geode slice that I have. This purple part, the light, the white light, all the colors of the rainbow will absorb into this purple part, but reflect off purple wavelengths of light into our eyes, and we see that purple reflected light. We see reflections of light. That's not quite how a blue morphle butterfly's wing scales work. So the order of butterflies and moths is called Lepidoptera. Remember, ptera means wing. Lepido or lepid means scales. So it means scaled wing. That second picture that you guys see there is a macro shot or a zoom, like a microscopic shot of the wings. You can see the layered scales that are on the wing. You can kind of see that they're translucent, they're clear, because they're not inherently a specific color. What they are nanoprisms, okay? And what a prism does is it splits light. It doesn't reflect light, it splits light, all right? Light can be reflected, it can also be refracted, okay? So it can be split into other rays of light. And what this blue morphle butterfly does with these scales is they take the white light, and when the white light hits one of these prisms, it splits into all the other colors of the rainbow. And then as you see these little like lines and these tiers within that, the little like frills or the fringes inside the scales, each one of those are another prism that further splits the light and kind of bounces it around so that it never actually gets reflected off. The only wavelength of light that doesn't get lost in that wave of prisms is blue light. So it's not exactly reflected off, but it's filtered out, which is a bit different. So depending on the angle at which you hold the butterfly wing, you'll either see it's a clear wing and you can see right through the wing to the actual color of it, which is like black. Or if you have it at a different angle, you'll see it's blue because the light that you see that's meeting your eyes is the filtered out blue light. So with this very complicated prism microscope structure that's built into this wing, how can that pertain to our lives? Now, certain other engineering masters that are way beyond my expertise have figured out a way to kind of harness this ability, the special power that the blue morpho butterfly has in creating more advanced solar panels. Because solar panels, as we know, basically take energy from the sun and convert it into electrical energy by having these panels. If we could have a panel that had this same quality that can filter out light that we don't want, but light that we do want, you're able to actually fully harness and capitalize on the amount of energy creating wavelengths of light that the sun gives off. So all of the extra I think gamma rays and UV rays that we don't really need in a solar panel that might degrade and shorten the life of it, if we're able to filter all those out and only take in the light that we need, we'd be able to actually capitalize on it. It'd be more efficient, and we'd be able to spend less money on them and then be able to have more energy. And all of that was inspired by the wing of a blue morpho butterfly. You kind of see where I'm going with this? So we're going to try to speed through a lot of these other ones. This one here, order Coleoptera, one of another beetles, family Carabida, which is the family of the ground beetles, my personal favorite of all of the beetles. This is a ground beetle. It might look menacing, and it should look menacing because they're a very ferocious, predacious kind of predator. I've caught one of these before, and getting bit by them, it hurts. You can see how big their mandibles are. They're iridescent, they're shiny, they're like little metallic green jewels. They're beautiful, beautiful animals. Now, what's really cool about this guy is, if you guys are familiar with at least playing video games or taking videos, there's something called frame rate. That's how many pictures pass through your eyes every second. So for example, like a movie, every second, there's 24 pictures that go through your eyes every second, 24 frames per second. If you're moving faster than the frame rates, you're basically moving at like 1 picture a second. So you'll take one picture, you move and you walk, and you'll take another picture, and it'll just be very choppy or laggy, you know? And we don't really like that with our vision. These tiger beetles can run so fast, they can outrun the frame rates of their bodies or their eyes. So our eyes as humans, like I mentioned before, we see 24 frames per second, all right? So imagine if we moved at 1 frame a second. So if I could walk from, let's just say my hand is here 1 second, and my hand is here another second. If I move like this, you can see my hand moving pretty cleanly. But if you can only see 1 frame a second, this is the first frame you see for 1 second. And the next second, my hand will just glitch over here. That's how it's like when these guys run. They run so fast, that's how the world looks. So they can run at about a speed of 2 feet per second. So when they start at point A, and they, in 1 second, can travel 2 feet, keep in mind, these things are like that small. They're like that small. And they can run 2 feet a second. That's like crazy fast. And when they run from point A to point B, once they reach point B, their eyes and their brain still see point A. So they're basically running blind. So imagine if the world was on pause and you just can't, everything's on pause. The whole world's on pause and you're walking. You can't see where you're going because the whole world's on pause. You have to stop and wait for the world to catch up, and then you have to keep walking. So if you look at these guys actually running on the ground, you'll find these guys in like forests and everything, like wherever you see where the light filters in from the trees, you'll see these little like sunspots in the ground. You'll see these little tiger beetles run from one sunspot to another sunspot. When you see them walking, they walk so fast, you barely see their legs moving. They're like just glitching on the ground. They're the fastest walking animals on the planet. Fastest walking insects in the world. Fastest walking animal on the planet. Fastest running or traveling animal is the peregrine falcon at what, 215 miles an hour is their falcon dive. But these guys are the fastest walking animals in the world. And they're very voracious predators. They sit there, they wait, the ants on the ground, they'll charge over to it with these huge mandibles, grab it, eat it, and then bolt. They also are very good flyers. So they can run, they can walk fast, they can hunt, they can attack, they can fly, they can do all of it. They're like one of my favorite insects. That's the tiger beetle. Next one, Praying mantis, one of my favorite animals almost in the entire world, mainly because I had the privilege to be able to raise one. So back in 2017, it was like the wintertime. It was probably around February. I went and was cutting the grass with my neighbor. No, I wasn't. This is during the wintertime. This is before I used, this is the house that I cut the grass for. And one of his shrubs was, all the leaves were lost because it was wintertime. And I see this egg case. It's a praying mantis egg case. I ask him for permission, clip it off, put it in a jar. Around springtime, it hatches. About 80 to 150 ant-sized praying mantises are just pooling out of this small little cocoon-looking thing called an ootheca. I don't know what to do with all these. So I decided to go ahead and capture them in a little jar, and I take care of one. I feed her every single day, these little small microscopic looking mites. She gets bigger, she grows bigger. She lives an entire life. I'm able to witness her grow up, sit there, hunt with her raptorial arms. Their arms actually can move 6 times faster than you can blink. That's how fast they can attack. And what's cool is that when they're about to attack, when they see let's say like a grasshopper, they'll see the grasshopper just sitting there, minding its own business, eating a little grass and stuff. It doesn't know the praying mantis is behind it. Praying mantis is green. It blends into its environment. And then it'll basically stand still and do this little dancing thing. Now imagine if you were in the wild. If you're in the wild, the wind's moving. You see all this grass moving. If all the grass is moving and this praying mantis is just standing there, not moving, the grasshopper will say, oh, you're not moving. You're not grass. You're going to eat me. I'm going to hop away. But no, the praying mantis will wave like it's a piece of grass in the wind so that the grasshopper doesn't exactly see it coming. And once it gets within range, yak. All right. Remember, 6 times faster than you can blink, this grasshopper is gone. It'll sit there and eat it while it's alive. It's a bit of a gruesome process, but I think it's really cool. Praying mantises are amazing. And I raised one, and alhamdulillah, I named her Shadowfoot. It was really cool. If you guys have any questions about that whole entire story, I have a lot of stories to share with that. So yeah, order Mantidea, family Mantidae. Next one, the earwig. This was the insect that got me started. The one I talked about before that looked like a flattened ant, weird looking wings in the back with the pincers in the back. Yeah, it looks scary. And people call it an earwig because people believed that the earwig would crawl into your ear and lay eggs in your brain and everything like that. First of all, your ear isn't connected to your brain like that. And these guys can't even fit in your ear, so don't worry about it. That's not what they do. Earwigs live in rotting and decaying bark. You'll find them in between, like rotting trees and underneath rocks and stuff. And somehow, because our house lived kind of nearby some woods, and it found its way into our house. And alhamdulillah, I'm glad it did, because if it didn't, I don't know where I'd be right now if it weren't for Wiggy the earwig, which is what I named that little earwig, was Wiggy, because I was 7 years old and did not have much of an imagination or creativity when it came to naming names. It was iconic enough that I will remember it for the rest of my life. Order is Dermoptera, which is Latin for skin wing, because you see the little wings looks like skin. That's why I named it that. And then the family is for Ficulidae. That's the earwig. Now, this is the last of our little speed Jeopardy round insects here, the leafcutter ant. Now, I wrote a paper about the leafcutter ant last year for a general seminar course. The cool thing, you might hear my cat in the background, she just woke up. The leafcutter ant is a very interesting animal. They live in the rainforest, and this is probably one that you might have heard of before, but do you guys really know why they cut up leaves? Why they bring them down into their colonies? Now, some people might think it's because they eat the leaves. They don't eat the leaves. Leafcutter ants are a lot more complex and more interesting than that. The leafcutter ants, they live in the Amazon. What they do is this. They similar, very similar. Very similar to how farmers will raise and grow up crops. They will raise a fungus, a mushroom underneath the ground in their soil, in their colonies. So they have all of these chambers underneath the ground that are built just for their raising up of these mushrooms. And they actually use the leaves and they eat them up and spit it out on the ground, and they use it as like cultivating soil to raise these mushrooms. And they don't eat the whole mushroom. The same way that we might harvest milk from a cow, these mushrooms will basically make these high carbohydrate filled organs that the ants actually pick up and use to eat for themselves, and they use to feed their young. There's a lot more cool things going on about leafcutter ants in terms of an actual war that they're doing to fight against the parasites. And these ants also have bacteria that live on their skin, on their exoskeleton, that help protect them against from this parasitic mushroom. If you guys have more questions about that, I will love to answer questions about that after we're done. So now to tie this back to Islam, or tie this to Islam. This is the way that I go ahead and I like to view insects as a Muslim scientist and everything. I decided to direct this to one avenue of Islam. So in the Quran, there are numerous examples of Allah talking about insects, namely bees and ants. He talks about locusts and mosquitoes and the significance in all of them. And I implore you guys to read those ayat. That's not what I'm going to cover right now. What I'm going to focus on is really something that comes before understanding the Quran, and that's really understanding who Allah is as our creator and as our Lord and everything. There's a concept, a creed that our whole entire Islam is founded upon, and that's the concept of Tawheed. Can someone raise their hand and if they're familiar with what Tawheed is? All right, so Tawheed is basically, Sadia?
Allah is one.
Yes, that's pretty much the whole entire basis of it, is that we attribute through three different tenets that we attribute to Allah's oneness. So these are the three basic tenets or the pillars of Tawheed. You've got Tawheed al-Uluhiyya, Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, and Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat. Tawheed al-Uluhiyya is basically attributing Allah, affirming Allah's oneness through acts of ibadah, through his decree in everything that encompasses his majesty. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah is affirming his oneness through his creation. And you've got Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat, which is affirming his oneness through his 99 names and attributes. All right, so we'll take them one at a time. Tawheed al-Uluhiyya. Oh no, we'll go to that one last. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. Actually, I'm gonna go through Asma wa Sifat. We'll start here and then we'll go and hone in on Uluhiyya. Asma wa Sifat. I talked to you about all these different kinds of insects, different shapes, different sizes, different functions, made of different materials. They do different things. They eat different items. They do a bunch of different stuff. They sit there, they're able to fly. They're able to cultivate crops. They're able to get rid of pests in gardens. They can run faster than their own nervous system. They can do a bunch of different things. All right. So obviously, everything that is created has a creator. And all of us as humans, this cup here, my desk, all of the insects, all the animals, everything, space, they're all created by Allah. And of course, Allah is Al-Khaliq, which is the creator. So you can tie insects to Allah in that way. But you can also look at how perfectly they fit into every ecological niche that they fit into. Like, for example, think about if we were able to travel as fast as a six-spotted tiger beetle, the green one that I showed you. Astronauts have to train for months to be able to go at the speeds that they have to travel up to go to space. But these are insects that are running at crazy speeds, and they don't have to go through any NASA training, all right? So their bodies are perfectly created in a sense that we can't even do for ourselves to be able to withstand those forces and those speeds. Allah is the perfect fashioner of his creation, the perfect designer. And even through his design, he's infinitely wise, al-Hakim, in his creation. So even if there's a hadith, Prophet Muhammad said, that said for every illness or disease that Allah put on this planet, there's a remedy. So even things that scientists now say are incurable, like maybe like Alzheimer's disease or certain cancers, they're diseases or ailments or disorders or anything, whatever you want to call it. They're on this planet. Allah created them. And because we know that everything that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is the truth, that everything Allah says is the truth, then there is a cure to cancer. There is a remedy for Alzheimer's. We just have to go ahead and find it. All right? And because Allah is infinitely wise in everything that He's created, there are certain aspects, so let's say certain insects that might have the answer to these questions that we have. All right? So you can look at all these different names of Allah, and you can see how they're manifested through the creation of these insects. Even Ar-Razaq, the provider. Look at honeybees. Look at how much honeybees provide for us. If you were to just sit there, if the honeybees were to just dust away and all bees are gone, I think somewhere upwards of like 60% of all plants would begin to die off because they need bees as pollinators across the planet, which provide us with the food that we need to live on a day-to-day basis. They also supply us with honey. Honey is full of many natural remedies, to the point that honey is so miraculous that there's a river of it flowing in Jannah. Again, product of bees, which are insects, which ties us back to the other point, Tawhid al-Rububiyyah, affirming Allah's oneness through His creation, which I kind of just answered by talking, because all these points are very, very well interconnected. That's what Tawhid is. You can't talk about one without talking about the other. I already talked about how infinitely wise and important and significant the creation of insects are. There's even a study going on about the shape of a blattidia, cockroach, the way that it's kind of domed in shape. Just by the way it scrambles around, that dome shape allows it to fit under doors and go up crevices and go through carpets and everything, just easy to maneuver all those obstacles. And what people have done is they've designed robots, just basic little vibrating legs, and they put it in those same terrains. It can't maneuver it. All they did was just 3D print a little that matched the same shape of a cockroach, and it just was able to maneuver all those same obstacles just fine. So Allah was able to create this perfect shape for the cockroach to be able to maneuver all these different nooks and crannies and spaces. You know, you see? And then Tawhid al-Uluhiyyah just kind of ties all this together by seeing that these insects obviously have a huge role for our survival, and also in ways that we probably don't even know yet, and we have yet to discover, which is what I want to do as an entomologist, studying these animals.
Naim?
Yes.
We better stop because we went 10 minutes over, but I wanted you to continue because this was just fascinating. This is such a wonderful, wonderful presentation. But would you be able to come back again to visit us?
Naim, yes.
Yeah, that would be great. MashaAllah, please thank Naim for us. And we can continue this conversation, but I wanted to give you the necessary time to cover the Islamic aspect of it, which is why. But the rest of the students, people need to perform Maghrib and of course, get to your classes, inshallah, as fast as possible. Take care, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Jazakallahu khairan, Naim. Thank you so much. That was beautiful.
Welcome. Yes. Assalam.
I like bugs.
Great. I do too. All right. Look forward to see you guys next time, inshallah. All right. Assalamu alaikum.